coin flip, right? Because, I mean, I feel like what we've seen in the early vote is that Democrats, I think we should argue, probably won the early vote, right? I mean, Democratic voters are, especially black voters, tend to be early vote people, tend to want to get in early, and it used to just be in-person early voting, and now it's absentee. Republicans largely don't trust, because of Donald Trump, absentee voting. And so I think it really depends on whether or not Democrats were able to build up enough vote in places like Fulton County and what we saw Steve Kornacki point out as those Fulton County suburbs to withstand what Donald Trump was able to do in the end. You know, it took him a while to get there, but he did finally kind of fully endorse Perdue and Loeffler and urge his people to get out there because they're his people. That's the Republican team. Their goal has always been to have Republicans win.
Unaccustomed as we are to interrupting, it's all over but the counting in 5 seconds. We're coming up on the main event tonight. Polls closing in both races. We'll have our first real vote now and our first characterizations in both races, even though, as Rachel correctly points out, if you're in line, stay in line. There will still be some votes cast. We're looking at the two races. We will start with Ossoff Perdue on the left to Warnock Loeffler on the right. The characterization from our election unit is the same. Too close to call, too close to call. At this hour, however, in addition to that thin characterization, which we knew was coming because we know this is going to be a long night, we will get our first look at real votes. And Steve Kornacki at the big board will be waiting for those to either trickle in or crash into the computer. Steve, in Georgia, the proviso, the warning has been coming up to tonight. Early vote drops first. So to our viewers, we need to kind of temper and tamp down some emotions that may be coming when they see the pile of early vote from some of these 159 counties across Georgia.
Yeah, Brian, and I think, look, there's do you like a good mystery novel? Because we've got a lot of mystery and suspense in what's coming tonight, not just in the results, but honestly in the sequence of this. I mean, we can look back at November and we can discern a couple things from November, but there's the possibility, and I've been picking up on this, talking to a lot of the county officials this week, and I keep peering over here because any second now we could start to see results populate this map. If we do, I'll stop what I'm saying and show that immediately. We can show you here some of the exit polling here. The electorate, the racial composition of the electorate, we showed you a couple hours ago, the exit poll suggesting it looks pretty similar to what it looked like back in the November election. How are those voters breaking down, at least according to the exit poll? Well, here you go. African-American voters, they make up, according to the exit poll, about 29% of the electorate. Same number as back in November. Warnock, 92, Loeffler, 8. This, by the way, this is the same breakdown that you see in the other Senate race. The Ossoff-Perdue Senate race is the same breakdown, so you're not seeing a difference there. And then among white voters, we can call that one up as well. Here you go. Warnock, Loeffler, 71-29 for Loeffler among white voters, and this is 62% of the electorate. Again, that's basically where it was back in November. It might be a point higher. 71-29 for the Republican. It is the same breakdown right now in that Ossoff-Perdue race. So you're not seeing a divergence, at least in these exit poll numbers we're looking at right now. You're not seeing a racial divergence between these two races. You're seeing the candidates track the same way with white voters and with black voters. Obviously, we will get more exit poll data, and eventually we will get real data here in the map, and we will see if there's any divergence between these candidates. But that is obviously something else we're keeping an eye on tonight. Is there a difference in one of these races? Is Perdue doing better than Loeffler or the other way around? So again, the exit poll is not pointing to any huge disparities, but it's just an exit poll. I believe I'm hearing, do we have some vote? Is that what I just heard? We have some vote here. Let's see what's in here. So this is Burke County. Okay, this is just outside Augusta. Now, do we know, I'm going to just ask my producer, who is in my ear, hopefully, do we know here what type of vote we're looking at? Okay. We're gonna check on that. I suspect that what you're looking at here is the mail-in voting, because this would be a very, very large number for Democrats here. It's a couple hundred votes, but this is the kind of thing, as we get results in from these counties, this is a key question here. Is this mail-in voting? I think you would expect it to be, just given that this county is not normally going to be a 75% Democratic county. Mm-hmm. But there you go. Those are our first results of the night. A couple hundred votes in a small county outside Augusta, but we're going to keep an eye out to see what else populates here, hopefully in the next couple minutes.
Steve Kornacki, thank you very much. Thank you for indulging indulging me on looking backward to November there for a second. Brian, back over to you.
If you've ever seen a golden retriever with a tennis ball, that's what to picture with Steve Kornacki watching the board. He's not going to look away. He's going to get our attention if anything else comes up.
What that looks like here, you guys have spent a lot of time talking about the fact that Republicans turn out day of, Democrats turn out early, and that's reflected directly in what we saw on the ground today. I spent a lot of time at a polling location in Southwest Atlanta, also in Fulton County, and almost every single person that I talked to told me that they were in and out, casting their vote and back at their car in less than 5 minutes, and that is a direct result of early voting. A strongly Democratic area, hardly any wait time, and you compare that with what you saw with Shaq in the Republican area where there's still a wait, Brian.
Yeah, we like to hear that during a pandemic or not. Blaine Alexander from Atlanta will be talking. Blaine, thank you. Rachel, over to you.
While we were just talking with Blaine, I do believe we got a little bit more vote coming in, so let's go over to Steve to hear about that.
We do, Rachel. So, sort of a scattering here. None of the major, big vote dumps I was talking about, but here you could just take a look at the scattering of votes you have statewide. This is the Ossoff-Perdue race. You can see the margin right now with a couple thousand votes. Just show you this is the Warnock-Loeffler race. So you look at those two, almost exactly the same. Basically, what I can show you here is a little bit of tea leaf reading, but this is more to give you a sense of what we're going to be looking at tonight. Let me start right up here. So this is Murray County. This is North Georgia. This is a core Republican county. And what this looks like, what I think we just got here in Murray County, is the mail vote. So this is as good as it's going to get for Democrats. What's notable and I think interesting about this is, and we're going to do this from county to county as it comes in tonight, what was the mail-in vote in Murray County back in November? Is it any different? Was it more or less for one candidate? Well, in November for Democrats, I don't know if you can see it, it was 33. So they've got a bigger share of the mail-in vote in Murray County now than they did back in November. Now, maybe that's good news for Democrats. The question is, as we fill in the rest of the vote, as we start to get the same-day vote in, for instance, that Republicans are counting on, have Republicans really run up an even bigger margin in the same-day vote? I note Murray County for you because what's right next door to Murray County? Whitfield County. What's in Whitfield County? That's where Dalton, Georgia is. That's where Donald Trump was last night. The entire reason Republicans sent Donald Trump to Dalton, Georgia last night is they are nervous about same-day turnout in North Georgia. They're nervous about same-day turnout in Murray County. They were seeing numbers like this that showed Democrats doing better in the early vote than they had done potentially back in November. So they sent the president in with the idea of, can we get him to fire up Republicans because we're going to have a lot of work to do on election day. So I point this out only because this is an illustration in one county that very well could be representative of this entire important for Republicans region of Georgia. That's the challenge Republicans were sensing in the closing days of this election, that Democrats were doing better in the mail-in vote, better potentially in the early vote than they had in November, and therefore Republicans were going to need a big surge on election day. So they sent the president right there next door. So
now too close to call. 159 counties in the state of Georgia, but during the break, I'm told 3 counties have filled in, done and dusted. Steve Kornacki, can you confirm this wild rumor?
That is absolutely true on this one, Brian. The small counties obviously more likely to get these tallied up first. So again, just to take you through before we show you, the exercise here is going to be as the county completes, how does it compare to the November election result? And then what share of the November turnout did they get in that county? Now, the 3 counties that came in so far, number 1, we got Lanier County, very, very small county down near Valdosta. This is a very big Republican county just in terms of the share the Republicans are going to get. David Perdue, 70.2% here. What does that compare to the November election? That's the Trump number from the November general election. So 70.2. Take a look at the other race here. Kelly Loeffler, even 0.2 of a point under that. Republicans, remember, the Trump number in many cases for Republicans may not be quite enough because Trump didn't win the state. So Republicans want to get a little bit more than the Trump number if they can. A couple other that we can show you here. Pulaski County, again, core Republican, all in right now. There, Loeffler at 69.2. Trump got 69. Take a look here. Perdue, 69.7. Trump got 69. So they are a little bit north of the Trump number right there. One other that's complete, Webster County. This is as tiny as they get. This is just a small town, essentially. And you do see percentage-wise, this translates to about 5 or 10 votes here. But again, this is to give you a sense here here of what we're looking for as we get to 100% in a lot of these different counties. Those are 3 Republican counties there. Republicans basically right on and a little bit over in one case, a little bit under in one case. That Trump number, we'll see how the Democrats do as we get blue counties in.
Steve, are you seeing anything that looks like a surprise to you yet?
It's too early to say. I think we just need to see full reporting from these counties because, for the Democrats, obviously they got to be encouraged by those mail-in numbers we're showing you in the Atlanta metro area. But the wild card there is what does the same-day turnout look like? Sure.
Steve Kornacki has waved his arms, and we're going back to him. Steve.
Yeah, Nicole, we've been showing you a lot of these smaller counties that are Republican counties, and we're saying, well, are Republicans getting the turnout they want? Let me show you a county that's now complete. We have all the vote, and it's a blue county. And this is a county right here, Washington County. This was not blue in November. In the Ossoff-Perdue race back in November, Perdue got it was 50-48. Perdue over Ossoff in Washington County. Now, this is a small county. Again, this is a county with a large African-American population. And one of the things we said at the top of the broadcast is Democrats have been saying they think they turned out more black voters in the early voting period than they were able to turn out back in November, in the November election. In the counties where you'd see that, in particular, is a county like Washington County. It's a small county. It's a rural county with a very large African-American population. There's a group of counties. There's kind of a band right here, Columbus area, Albany area, sort of east of Macon, where Washington County is. And you've got Ossoff now several points above, about 3 points above where he was in the November election. Also, we say we're monitoring the turnout here. How close to the turnout level in November are we seeing right here in Washington County? It's at 90%. It's down 10%. Now, we've seen a couple counties in northern Georgia that are higher than that in terms of being down from November. It's down 10% here. So, again, this is one county. We're looking for complete counties here. But here you go is a complete county with a large black population where the turnout, this is one of the highest we've seen relative to November, and where Democrats now have flipped the county in the Senate race. Ossoff lost this county to Perdue in November. This is a narrow margin, but Ossoff now is going to win this county. And you can take
back with you. I want to bring into the conversation now our friend, the host of All In, Chris Hayes. Chris, you have this podcast, Why Is This Happening? That is what I keep thinking tonight. We're watching these numbers. We're watching these emerging early dynamics, which may absolutely change as the night goes on and more vote of different types comes in. But the character of the race, the character of the election, the way the candidates ran, the issues that they used, what their stump speeches sound like, what their ads sounded like. I know that you've been keeping an eye on that. How is that translating and resonating for you now we're starting to see numbers come in?
So I think it's worth just taking a second to think about who should be favored here structurally, just when we found out it was going to run off. I mean, Perdue beat Ossoff by 2 points. The Loeffler race, which had a bunch of people in it, is a little hard to do apples to apples. But you've got two things, right? These Perdue and Loeffler won the first time. And normally the way we think about the sort of thermostatic way the public opinion goes, it sort of swings from side to side, particularly in this era, that, the side that loses a presidential election gets very fired up. We've seen that with the infamous Scott Brown open race, right, in Massachusetts under Barack Obama. We saw it with a bunch of races in Trump's first year. So there was a lot of reasons to think Republicans would be structurally advantaged in this race. So far, we are seeing a dead even race. And I think there's two things to look at. One is the checks discourse. I mean, Kelly Loeffler and David Perdue ran on stopping socialism, more or less. That was really the big thing. It was pure negative partisanship. It was blocking the other people from taking control. And Donald Trump and the Democratic Party sort of got together to hand Ossoff and Raphael Warnock a pretty great wedge issue down the stretch, which was, we want to send you $2,000 to help you get through the next 6 months of this pandemic as we get everyone vaccinated. There's polling that shows that's an 80% issue, right? Plus, you've got Donald Trump pushing for it. You've got Kelly Loeffler and David Perdue suddenly wrong-footed on that issue. So you've got that issue. And then you've got this big turnout question. I think this is one of the most fascinating questions right now. I mean, one way to understand November was there were two groups of Republican-leaning voters in the polls on election night in November. There were Trump voters who only come out for Trump, and then they vote Republican because they're there anyway. And then there were Republican voters who don't like Trump, who voted for Joe Biden and then voted for Republicans down ticket, which is why Republicans did pretty well in House races particularly. what was the electorate going to look like without Trump at the top of the ticket this time around? And right now, the early data is suggesting that there's some marginal fall off, that there are marginal voters Donald Trump is able to bring out for Republicans that other Republicans aren't able to get. Even if it didn't mean Donald Trump won last time, we have seen him able to bring out some kinds of marginal Republican voters that don't necessarily come out for other Republican candidates. And that's been kind of a theme of this era. And it'll be very interesting to see if that holds through the night as we get the rest of the data.
And Chris, when you have watched the way these elections and these campaigns have unfolded, obviously it's been very distracting looking at it from a national perspective to see these crazy crosswinds blowing from the White House and all of the divisive and schismatic Republican stuff going on because of the president continuing to nurse his grievances over losing the election in Georgia in particular in November. But we're also seeing, and I'm asking you to split hairs here a little bit, we're also seeing a slightly different result here between these two different Senate races. We are seeing Raphael Warnock slightly outperform Jon Ossoff statewide and in some of the key Democratic-leaning counties here. Did you see material differences in terms of the way that Warnock and Ossoff campaigned, or in the way that Loeffler versus Perdue campaign that might explain why we are seeing a little bit of a divergence between the two?
I think there's two things here, right? Loeffler didn't have really the benefit incumbency because she was appointed to that seat and she had to fend off a challenge. She very famously ran a whole barrage of ads about how right-wing she was, to the right of Attila the Hun. She had to pivot a little bit, although what's been really interesting about this race in many ways when you watch the Perdue and Loeffler ads, first of all, 80% of these ads have been negative in either direction about, the records of each, corruption, a thing that Raphael Warnock said from the lectern, et cetera. To the extent there's a substantive case there, the Loeffler and Perdue case has been, stop the libs from taking over, stop socialism, stop AOC from running the country, essentially. But Loeffler's in a weaker position. I think she doesn't have the same level of name recognition. She's not been in the seat as long. She's a relative newcomer. She didn't get the seat by winning that, winning an election on her own. And I think that weakness has showed. The weakness has showed in the way that she has conducted herself throughout this race.
Again, Rachel, we're getting near half of the vote in now statewide, and you see Ossoff in the tally with a 7-point lead over Perdue, just south of 150,000 votes, 53.5. Take a look here at Warnock, 53.9. 0.4 of a point. That's maybe settling in now. Let's see. Warnock running 0.4 of a point above Ossoff. So about half the vote in. Where are we starting to get more complete counties? Let's take a trip down to southwest Georgia. We have been talking about rural counties with large black populations. The city of Albany is right here. This one county we don't have results from, Dougherty County. But a lot of the rural counties in the sort of Albany area, southwest Georgia, we are starting. Here's a tiny one. But again, when we get a complete county, I think it's relevant. Clay County, about as small as they get county-wise. But look at this. Ossoff, he's over the Biden number here. He's several points over the number that he got out of Clay County back in November. The turnout in Clay County is down 8%. That's a single-digit drop in turnout right there. Take a look here at Early County. Again, now this is not a majority black county, but there's a large black population here. And you can see from the Biden number of 47.2, Ossoff is up at 48. And again, the Ossoff number back in November was 46. So Ossoff is a couple points above his November number in Early County. The turnout here is off 12%. Take a look next over in Baker County. Again, Ossoff several points north of Biden. Perdue a little bit under the Trump number here. The turnout in Baker is down 8%. One more we can show you. Mitchell County. Again, this may not look like much, but if there is a trend here, and we've now seen a number of these small rural black counties where Ossoff is running 2-3 points better than Biden, 3, 4, 5 points better than Ossoff himself ran back in November. Turnout's actually down 16% here in Mitchell County. It'd be interesting. Does that mean more is coming out of the Republican hide here potentially? Because there is some significant movement there. So again, you've got improvement in rural black counties. We've seen it now in about a half a dozen counties. You've seen improvement for Democrats relative to what they got out of the November election. One thing to point out here is a sort of a core Republican county, Southwest Georgia. There's Perdue almost at the Trump number, and the turnout here is only off 11%. So turnout-wise, down here right now, we've got a complete rural Republican county. Republicans can't be upset with the turnout there, but I do think that story we introduced at the start of the night, how were Democrats going to do in these smaller counties with large black populations where they felt that in the early voting they were getting signs that they were going to do better than November? We're seeing them do better than they did in November now. I'd say in about a half a dozen counties.
Steve,
able to get confirmed in terms of the Biden cabinet and, of course, what they're able to do legislatively. The stakes could not be higher in terms of the hopes and dreams of Democrats and what they are expecting from the new administration. At this hour, at the top of the hour at 9 o'clock Eastern, polls have been closed in Georgia for 2 hours. This is the Jon Ossoff versus David Perdue race. At this hour, it is too close to call. 58% of the vote in. You see the narrow lead there. 50.5% of the vote for Ossoff. 49.5% of the vote for David Perdue. Again, too close to call, a difference of just over 25,000 votes between them. This is the other Senate race in Georgia tonight. Again, it is too close to call. 51.5% of the vote for Raphael Warnock, 48.5% of the vote for Kelly Loeffler. Again, both races at this hour too close to call, with just over half the vote in both of those races, and we're watching county by county as it continues to come in. Structurally, heading into this race tonight, heading into this incredibly important focus on Georgia, Republicans had every reason to be confident based on the history here. Since the late 80s, there have been 8 statewide runoffs in Georgia. Republicans have won 7 of those 8. And the one that was won by a Democrat, the Democrat who won that statewide runoff, very quickly switched parties and became a Republican thereafter. That said, Joe Biden just became the first Democratic candidate in a presidential race to carry Georgia since 1992. Georgia Democrats have been telling us that Georgia is a swing state for the last several years. This year, it has come to fruition, and that makes the suspense tonight all the more, well, I'm just going to say, sort of exciting. Steve Kornacki has the latest from the big board. Where do we stand, Steve?
It is getting close, Rachel. Take a look at this. 60% of the vote is in right now, and that Ossoff margin over David Perdue now sits at about 10,000 votes, 7,000 votes, changing literally by the second. You can see 0.2 of 1 point. Let's look at it this way. Let's take a look here at where the remaining vote is. Bigger the bubble, more votes there are. And you can see, obviously, no surprise, we paid a lot of attention early on in the night to the Atlanta metro area, and we're now kind of in a waiting game. Cobb County, we got a lot to come in. I think this is the mail vote in Cobb County. I think that's what we're looking at right now. The Democrats did a few points better in the mail vote in Cobb County than they did back in November, but we got to see, how do they do in the early vote? How do they do in the same-day vote? That remains to be seen. DeKalb County, again, this is going to be an 80-something% county for Democrats, but we're only looking at less than a third of it right here. Gwinnett County, another enormous one for Democrats. We're waiting on that. Fulton County, again, we still have some of the same-day vote to come in Fulton County. We still have some mail-in vote to come in Fulton County. And we set this up. We've been tracking this throughout the night. The last time we checked in, the numbers have not changed since the last time we checked in here in Fulton County. But the question here for Ossoff, the question here for Democrats, do they land at or above the number that Joe Biden got in Fulton County? Again, I'd say it was about 45 minutes ago. My sense of time is not great right now, but I would say about 45 minutes ago we checked in. We haven't got any new votes since then. Again, there are some same-day votes to come in Fulton County. They should be Democratic, but they'll be the least Democratic, if you follow, of all the votes that get counted in Fulton. And then, there should be about 15,000 or so mail-in ballots. Those should be the most Democratic of the different kinds of votes. So the potential exists there for Ossoff to finish above Biden in Fulton. And again, the potential certainly exists for Warnock, who is outpacing Ossoff, Fulton and elsewhere, to also finish above that Biden number. As we say, the Biden number is sort of a good North Star for Democrats as we go county to county. Biden won the state. Hit the Biden number. Exceed the Biden number if you're a Democrat. You can just see what the targets are here. Cobb County, the target's 56%. Again, You are looking at mail vote right now. As the same day comes in Cobb, that will come down. Do the Democrats land north of that Biden number in Cobb County? That's a big one. Gwinnett County, again, you are looking at the mail vote. This is as good as it's going to get for Democrats in Gwinnett County. But is the rest of the vote going to bring them lower than that Biden number, or will they exceed it? These are key questions right now as you look at a statewide race as close as the one we're looking at right now. DeKalb County, again, you are looking largely at mail votes right here. Is that going to come down under 83%? That's the pace. That is the pace that the Democrats need to be at. I'm just eyeing this map to see if anything else has come in. I want to take a look. Let's see here. Bartow County, we're at 20%. And let's take a look. Paulding County. This is an interesting one. Now, we don't have all the vote in Paulding County. This is another one of those that's on sort of the edges of the Atlanta metro area that has a core Republican county that's less Republican than it used to be. Less Republican than it used to be. And you can see here, Trump won it by 29. Okay, the margin right now is, there it is. That is, when you see 95, it's a very complicated accounting story, but 95, we think we got all the vote. We want to go verify that right now. When we verify it, move it up to 100, but when you see 95, sorry, I know this is needlessly confusing, but when it gets to 95, that generally means we think, pending a check, we think we've got all the votes. So here you go. Paulding County, this is a big one where Donald Trump got 64% of the vote, where Joe Biden got just under 35% of the vote. Here's Warnock. He's more than 3 points above the Biden number. This is not a Democratic county, but remember, if you're a Democrat and you're trying to win in Georgia, Joe Biden won in Georgia, getting 34.8% of the vote in Paulding County. Raphael Warnock just got 38% of the vote in Paulding County. He did not win the county, but that's good news for a Democrat to be running above that Biden number.
How about Ossoff there?
Let's take a look at the Ossoff. Okay, 37.7. So under the Warnock number, but over by 3 points the Biden number. And this is one of those, just, go back in time. Look at this. 2016, Donald Trump wins this county by 41 points. Fringe Atlanta metro area. There's been, even in the Republican counties, there's been a reaction against Trump. 41 points for Trump in 2016. Trump's on the ballot again in November, 29 points. And tonight, looks like about 24.5 points in these Senate races.
Back out to Steve Kornacki. Steve, out of the corner of my eye, I just noted that this race went to 50-50 in the state, and now it appears to have gone off that dime.
So, yeah, here we go, Brian. 2/3 in right now, just a little shy of 2/3. And you can see David Perdue has jumped Jon Ossoff in the vote count. A 16,000 vote lead right now, 0.6 of 1 point. Perdue up in this one. Take a look. Warnock still up about 8,800 votes over Loeffler in the tally right now, about 2/3 in statewide. So right now, where we are in the tally is Warnock still has more votes than Loeffler. Perdue, about 17,000 more votes than Ossoff. Again, that's a difference of about 25,000 votes. That's what I mean about that's potentially a significant difference. Where did this sudden surge of votes for Republicans come from? One place it came from is a place we have been talking about a lot lately, Cherokee County. And again, we're at that state. We want to see if anything is left here. But here's Perdue. We said there were, last time we checked in, we were getting close. There were more precincts. With the more precincts that came in, Perdue has now moved above that number, above that Trump number. Again, by historical standards, 69.7 is not a great number for a Republican in Cherokee County. But for a Republican trying to just scrape by in this election here, in this runoff election, to be a point above Trump in Cherokee County, that's a good sign in that county for Republicans. Again,
in New York, we are following these two incredibly vital Senate races tonight in the state of Georgia. Our terminology from the close of the polls has been the same. They remain, both of them, too close to call. With all our talk tonight, especially with Steve Kornacki, about the counting of the vote, about the vote remaining, let's actually watch the process. Priscilla Thompson has made her way to a vote counting location in Gwinnett County in Lawrenceville, Georgia. Priscilla, tell us what's going on.
Well, Brian, I'll give you a live look at what happens once polls close in these counties. So those election workers gathered their materials and they are coming here to the Gwinnett County headquarters. There are about 7 different stations running here where workers are turning in those provisional ballots, those data cards, signing off on their paperwork showing how much that they're turning in. You'll hear a lot of cheers and claps in here once these workers are finally done because they get to go home. But what happens is that a runner will come and collect that bag and take it back into a secure location so that it will ultimately end up in the tabulation center, which we'll swing around and show you here in a second. And this is where folks are plugging in those data cards and they are tabulating the actual votes that are coming out of these various polling locations and making sure that they've got that count, submitting it to the Secretary of State's office. And I'm going to sort of keep taking you through this building because there's a little bit more here to show. So we talked about those stations where workers are turning things in. I want to show you the line of polling precincts workers that are still waiting to get through and turn their stuff in. The election administrator here tells us that they do this in batches, so they'll see about 30 or 40 people come in at a time, and that this will be going through the night. And there are observers in here, both Democrats and Republican representatives who are able to watch all of this process unfolding. And the last point that I want to make is that the Board of Elections here in Gwinnett County is also here, back here in this area. They've got the state results page up, and they are prepared to meet if they need to. We know that there is an update coming from the Secretary of State's office in just a little while. They just called in here to get an update on where things stand here, so we'll likely, and the state office is likely doing that in a number of different counties in order to prepare for that press conference.
Of thousands of votes in what is left to come in Cobb County. That is equally true, more true, for Warnock over Loeffler. Warnock outpacing even Ossoff right now. So that's an example. You see, Cobb County, Democrats can still net quite a bit out of there. DeKalb County, I mean, again, look at this. You got 120,000 votes, about 125,000, a little bit less than that have been counted so far. This is going to be an 80% plus Democratic county. This is going to be an 83, 84, 85% Democratic county. A ton of votes still to be counted there. And then you go to Gwinnett County. Now we're closer to getting it all in Gwinnett County. You can see, though, there is an opportunity for Democrats to squeeze a little bit more out of Gwinnett County. And all of these, in Gwinnett, certainly in Fulton and Cobb, I don't believe it's the case. They are. In DeKalb, Warnock is actually running a little bit ahead of that Biden number. It's Ossoff who's actually a fraction of a point behind it. But, OK, on paper, there are some sources, some significant sources of votes that remain for Democrats. They're sort of very concentrated geographically. Republicans have been just adding from a bunch of different places in the last few minutes.
Steve, thank you very much. We are now in the, in case you need the bottom line there, we're in the refresh part of the night in terms of waiting to get in those final results. It is too close to call. In both of the Georgia Senate races, the stakes, of course, are control of the United States Senate. Democrats need to win both of these if they want their party to control the U.S. Senate. We're going to take a quick break as we continue to watch those votes roll in. We'll be right back on the other side.
These two races we still have as too close to call. Steve Kornacki remains at the big board. Steve, do you see anything developing here that could be called a trend?
Well, we have a very, very big and clear, outstanding piece of real estate. Let me take you through what we're waiting on and how it's going to affect what you're looking at right here. So what you're looking at right now is that with 80% of all the vote counted up here in Georgia, Kelly Loeffler, the appointed Republican incumbent, with a 43,000 vote advantage over Raphael Warnock. 43,000 is the Loeffler lead in this race. In the other race, the lead for David Perdue sitting at 70,000 votes here. Perdue, the Republican incumbent, over Jon Ossoff, a 70,000 vote lead, 2-point margin with 80% of the vote in. We have seen Republicans building and building this number over the last 2 hours or so. Rural areas have filled in, ex-urban areas, all the red you see on this map filling in. That brings me to the big, outstanding piece of real estate. So take a look at it this way. Where is the remaining vote in the state of Georgia? The bigger the bubble, the more vote there is. If you can see, I'm going to expand it right here. There is one bubble that is just clearly much bigger than all of them, and that's this bubble right here. Basically, this bubble that you're looking at is a quarter It is 1/4 of all of the outstanding votes in the state of Georgia. What is this bubble? This bubble is DeKalb County. DeKalb County, what is it? It is one of the most overwhelmingly Democratic counties in the state of Georgia. You can see with 37% of the vote tallied here, Jon Ossoff is getting 82.8% of the vote. Raphael Warnock, again, doing about a half a point better, sitting on 83.4% of the vote. That is about what a Democrat should be getting out of this county. Biden got 83% of the vote. So
11 p.m. here in the East Coast from our global headquarters, where we continue to watch these two Georgia Senate races. At stake, nothing less than control of the U.S. Senate. Nothing less than the need for new business cards and letterhead for Mitch McConnell, switching from majority leader perhaps to minority leader. That is the stakes. That's the consequences tonight. We were given reason to believe that in the last hour we would get a large tranche of numbers out of DeKalb County, Georgia, that may be large enough to decide this thing. There's been a delay in those numbers. It doesn't stop us from watching the board very closely for this incremental game that we're now in after 11 o'clock Eastern time. Steve Kornacki remains at the board. Steve, I assume you've refreshed the DeKalb County numbers no fewer than 20 times in the time it took us to have a commercial break.
And still, Brian, the bubble hasn't shrunk. So we haven't got any new votes in here from DeKalb County as we wait for them. The lead here for David Perdue, 117,000 votes in that Senate race. The lead for Kelly Loeffler, 85,000 votes in that Senate race. Again, we don't think it's going to be all. They've told us it's not going to be all of the early vote from DeKalb County, about 170,000 votes or so. Won't be all, but it will be a significant chunk of it. You know, whenever we get that update, let's see when it is. Could be very soon. Again, 80% plus Democrats win DeKalb County with over 80% of the vote. This is one of the most Democratic counties in the state. So when we get that update, again, it won't be all the early vote, but a big chunk of it. You can expect certainly that these numbers are going to move very dramatically, these statewide Senate votes. So we're waiting on that. What else are we waiting on? Just give you, I want to take you through one other important a component of the outstanding vote here, and that is next door to DeKalb County. The bubble is kind of dwarfed here by the DeKalb bubble, but you can see a bubble still where Fulton County is.
It's the shank
Steve,
of the evening.
I'm not rushing your process, and I'm seeing DeKalb still at 42.
Right.
But I also have reason to believe you know of some new number?
Yes. The DeKalb County website has just posted an update. Now, I'll tell you right now, this may populate in our system as I'm going through these numbers. So these numbers could kind of go berserk here in a second. There it is.
There it is.
Okay. That makes the math a little easier. This is not all of the, this is not all, but this is most of the early vote that just came in here in DeKalb County. And you can see here now a 200,000 vote margin for Jon Ossoff in DeKalb County, 82.5% of the vote. Let's check Raphael Warnock, 82.2% of the vote. A 90,000. Oh, this one still has to. All right, we'll come back to that. Here you can see Ossoff, 200,000 vote edge. What did that do to the statewide tally? Now Ossoff trails by 2,140 votes. That was over 100,000. We're talking about that Perdue lead growing and growing and being over 100,000. With that update, again, that's not everything. There is still a little bit more to come from DeKalb County. With that update, Ossoff has almost entirely erased what David Perdue's lead had been. Let's check now again if we've got the Warnock Loeffler vote here in DeKalb County. There it is. Okay. Warnock now 83.2%, a margin of 204,000 votes. Now remember, he was already doing better statewide than Jon Ossoff. Raphael Warnock has taken the lead statewide in Georgia right now. He leads by 32,000 votes and change. So with that update from overwhelmingly Democratic DeKalb County, what you just got in there was early vote. And I'm sorry, what you just got in there was early vote. Again, not all of it. There is still some more to come. That's most of it. But what you've got here is that has put Raphael Warnock into a 32,000 vote lead statewide. That has brought Jon Ossoff within 2,140 votes of David Perdue statewide. Let's reset now in terms of what is still to come in. These things just got very, very close, and that is not at all.
That was 2 hours ago.
Are the size of those bubbles proportional?
Yes,
Okay.
that's exactly. Boy, that I nearly had a heart attack looking at that.
Yeah.
What happened there was we had over 100,000 votes, about 131,000 votes just suddenly come in, and so it's resized these counties. Okay, now, literally in real time here, Perdue just added 15,000. I'm going to ask my producer, what just came in the last 30 seconds? The DeKalb, they put the wrong number in for DeKalb.
Oh, good.
Bartow, there was a problem with the Bartow County number. Okay, the numbers sometimes get entered wrong. They had entered them a little bit incorrectly for Bartow County and for DeKalb. Is this the correct number? This is the correct number. So it is 19,629. That is the statewide lead for David Perdue right now. Raphael Warnock's lead over Kelly Loeffler is 20,010 votes. 20,010 for Warnock. And again, a deficit here of almost 20,000 votes for Jon Ossoff. A 40,000 vote swing, a difference between those two candidates. So again, we say, where is the remaining vote now? And you can see with all of that DeKalb vote getting reported out, these bubbles just dramatically changed size because that was overwhelmingly the lion's share of what's out there. But you still see a circle. I'll circle the circle. You still see a circle in DeKalb County. So there is more from what you just saw. There is more of that to come. Not a ton, but there is some more to come from DeKalb County that will be overwhelmingly Democratic. So Ossoff and Warnock will still get some more out of DeKalb County. There is also a little bit more now from Fulton County, and we took you through this a few minutes ago. What we think we're dealing with in Fulton County here is the mail vote. So again, they were about 10,000 or so mail ballots they had coming into Election Day in Fulton County that they were not able to process and get reported out earlier tonight. So we are waiting on those 10,000 or so mail ballots, plus in Fulton County, whatever came in today, in the mail today, in drop boxes today throughout Fulton County. It could be 15,000 or so more mail votes to come in Fulton County. Again, those will be overwhelmingly Democratic, probably at a 75, 80% clip. We are waiting here in Cobb County on some early vote here. So again, there's an opportunity in Cobb County. It's not a ton, but there is an opportunity in Cobb County for the Democrats to get a little bit more. Two more here we are waiting on. Newton County. This one is close right now, but it is. We have the same day vote, we believe, has basically been processed in Newton County. So it is still, I believe that is the early vote. Is that right, Adam? Check me on that. The early vote to come in Newton. Okay, I want to double check on that. But again, we talk about those Democratic counties in the Atlanta metro area. Newton is typically one of them. You can see right now Ossoff is a little bit under the Biden number. Also, we have some vote from Henry County. I think this may be same day vote in Henry County. So again, we want to see what the same day vote should be less pro-Democratic, should be more Republican. But are Democrats still gaining votes with the same day vote to be counted, or are Republicans going to gain some votes there? But it's these Atlanta metro area, really 5 counties here in the Atlanta metro area. And I believe Henry just reported. There you go. I think you're basically looking at Henry County right now, and you can see Ossoff. Okay, so, Ossoff is going to finish up here in Henry County 1.5 points above the Joe Biden number from November. Raphael Warnock, about 2 points above the Joe Biden vote from November. What does this do to the statewide picture? We just took one of those counties pretty much off the board. Warnock's lead here, again, is sitting at, let me get this off the screen here, too. Warnock's lead here is sitting at 19,000, and Perdue's lead is sitting at about 20,000. So we've got those. It's now 4 counties, really, 4 big places there in the Atlanta metro area. This bubble give you deja vu for the November election. This bubble around Chatham County where Savannah is, that is getting larger here. We think there are about 20,000 votes left to come here. Now, a point of clarification. A minute ago, I said, they went home in Chatham County. We're not getting anything more tonight. They did go home, but apparently they did a lot of work before they left that is going to be released after they leave. So what we are now hearing from Chatham County is that there is a release of votes that is imminent here in Chatham County that could be the rest of the votes in Chatham County after everybody has left. So somebody stayed to release the vote, but apparently we are waiting on that. So these are the biggest pieces of real estate that are left here. There's also, here in Richmond County where Augusta is, I think we are waiting on a little bit of the mail vote right there. There's some scattering here in some other places, but there are still, I think the key here, when you look at this and the totality of this, there are still Democratic votes to come here.
Claire McCaskill, I want to take a measurement of your level of optimism as we go into this hour, watching these numbers fluctuate and knowing that this is in a dynamic environment, a toxic political environment, that any result other than 2-0 for the GOP in Georgia tonight was likely to be attacked as being fraudulent.
Well, if the Democrats are somehow ginning this up to win by fraudulent means, why am I sitting on the edge of my seat and chewing my fingernails? It would seem if we were going to do this, we could do it a lot easier than this. Obviously, that is the president doing what he does best, lie. He's lying. And the people in the Senate who are going to help him tomorrow are lying. Now, here's a scenario that is very interesting. It appears to me that Kelly Loeffler will lose her Senate seat tonight, and it should probably be declared by tomorrow afternoon. And guess who is supposed to be the person objecting to the certification of the Georgia votes tomorrow? None other than Kelly Loeffler. So imagine her job tomorrow, having lost the Senate race, which it appears that she is going to do. And then this is a woman who has been programmed in this campaign. Her answers have been clearly, scripted. She's been very kind of focused on socialism, and I'm conservative. And
it is midnight on the East Coast. Polls have been closed in Georgia for 5 hours, and here's where we stand. In the Georgia Senate runoff between incumbent Republican Senator David Perdue and Democratic challenger Jon Ossoff, it's 50-50. This race is officially too close to call per NBC News. There are very few votes between those two candidates. Again, 50.0 to 50.0 in the second Georgia Senate special runoff today between Raphael Warnock and incumbent Kelly Loeffler. This is too close to call, although Warnock leads. He's at 50.4 to Loeffler's 49.6. There are a difference of just over 35,000 votes between those two candidates. But again, the numbers here are astonishing in terms of their closeness. There are remaining votes still due to be reported. We're at 98% in. We're watching closely the counties that remain on our board with votes outstanding. Joy Reid, watching what we have seen over these past 5.5 hours since we have been here, the 5 hours since the polls closed, it has been a nail biter. I have no nails left. I didn't start with very many, but I have no nails left. It's very, very close. Obviously, Raphael Warnock's supporters have to be pleased with their position right now. Neither Ossoff nor Perdue supporters can be happy with their position right now, with them tied at 50-50. But a lot of the remaining vote does seem to be due from Democratic-leaning areas.
Yeah, and the reality of the way American elections work is that the black towns come last. They come in last. African Americans tend to live in cities, big cities, and in states like Georgia, they tend to have sort of the older machines, the sort of they're not given like the top equipment. It's difficult, right? Every sort of hurdle is sort of put before African-American voters, and then you tend to see the votes from these big cities, from cities that are very diverse, come in late. So that looks good in an election like this because you're waiting on sort of what's finally out there, what Steve has been telling us all night. You're waiting for the cities that are predominantly non-white, right? Or that at least have pluralities of non-white people in them, and that usually is good for Democrats.
Let's find out from Steve Kornacki if we are any closer to figuring out which of those scenarios it is going to be. Steve, we are still waiting for those same votes to come in, right?
Yeah, so we're trying to get a sense here exactly what is left. And I was just talking to our decision desk. They are trying to track down exactly what is left, exactly where it is left, how much of it's left, and what type of vote we're talking about here. So we're looking at a situation here where for this race right here, David Perdue, 1,888 votes. That his margin statewide over Jon Ossoff. In the other race here, this is the one where the Democrats right now have something of a pad. Raphael Warnock, 35,132. So he's been running consistently ahead of Ossoff. It's more than 35,000 vote difference between those two races. Now, what are the major sources of outstanding vote that we know of right now? Number one is DeKalb County. This is the biggest. We think there are about 20,000 votes, left to come in DeKalb County. We do not know. We're trying to find out. We do not know if we are going to get those remaining 20,000 votes. Some of them, all of them, none of them. We don't know if we're going to get that tonight. But the 20,000 votes to come from DeKalb County, we saw this earlier when we got that big batch of votes. It's going to be overwhelmingly Democratic. Exactly how overwhelmingly Democratic, I don't know. It's going to be 79, 81, 83, but it's going to be an overwhelmingly Democratic vote when it comes in. So about 20,000 votes there. Ossoff going to get the lion's share of them, certainly. Warnock is going to get the lion's share of them, certainly. And you could just see that alone could move Ossoff ahead of Perdue in the statewide count. Where else are we waiting for votes? Fulton County. What are we waiting on in Fulton County? We're trying to get an exact sense of what we're waiting on. One thing we know we are waiting on in Fulton County, though, we've talked about this a little bit, the mail votes that arrived today, the ones that were dropped off. They have those drop-off boxes, that you can take your mail ballot on Election Day, put it in the box. People who did that on Election Day, that still needs to be processed, tabulated, reported out. Is that something that's going to happen tonight, partially, entirely? Is that something that's going to wait till the morning? If it happens tonight, we get indications. I think it's going to be a little while on that. But again, how many of those votes are there? We're not sure. 5,000, 10,000, could it be somewhere in that range? Not exactly sure. But that vote, again, that's mail vote in Fulton County. That is expected to be heavily, Democratic vote. Also, the saga of Chatham County, where Savannah is. We have had, they're going to leave 20,000 votes. They're going to report them all out. There are still some votes. We think mail votes, probably 3,000. I'll call up the results that we have from Chatham County. We think there are about 3,000 mail votes left in Chatham County that they are not going to count tonight. So we got a big release from Chatham County a little earlier. We thought that might be all of the votes. It is almost all of the votes, but you can expect 3,000 more mail ballots. This is Savannah area. So again, mail ballots, Democratic. You can expect Democrats to make gains there. So DeKalb, Fulton, and Chatham County, Savannah, those are the biggest sources of outstanding vote. We're trying to get an exact accounting because there are, scatterings in different, some of these Republican counties have some outstanding vote, but it also what it looks like in these even Republican counties where you're looking at outstanding vote right now, it looks like you're generally looking at mail vote, early vote, mail vote, not the Election Day vote. The Election Day vote is the most overwhelmingly Republican in any county you're in. The Election Day vote's the most overwhelmingly Republican to the extent we're waiting on, a little bit from here, a little bit from there, from some of these red counties you see on your map. You're going to be looking at the least Republican vote from those counties. Again, we're trying to get, our decision desk is an exact accounting of which counties there are there, how many votes. But again, it's a small, individually, these are small numbers. Even if you add them together, DeKalb is going to be your biggest. Fulton, Chatham, scattering, provisional ballots. That's not something we're going to get to tonight, but there were 10,000 provisional ballots back in the November election. So, what are they going to be for this election? 7,500, 8,000, something like that. The provisional ballots breaking, about 2-1 for the Democrats, back in November. So again, that could be about 8,000 votes where the Democrats are netting more than the Republicans. So that is our sense right now, and we're trying to refine it. I'm staying in touch with our decision desk here, but We see some significant sources of votes that remain on this map that are probably going to be very favorable to Democrats. We do not know if those places are going to report out tonight or if it's going to be into tomorrow. So we don't know if we're getting more votes. We don't know how many more we're getting. And again, the situation here is Jon Ossoff is trying to catch David Perdue in this count here. And if he does, or even if he doesn't, the issue here, too, is if it falls, if the final result falls within 0.5%, within 0.5% that could trigger a recount. So is Ossoff going to catch Perdue? Are we going to be inside 0.5 point there? And then this one, Warnock and Loeffler, this race, a little bit different dynamic here, where Warnock up 35,000 votes already. Also, like Ossoff, is waiting on some of these places that promise to deliver good votes for Democrats here in terms of what's left. Warnock with an opportunity to build on that, and potentially we will see his goal right now certainly would be to land in a place where not only is he ahead of Loeffler, but he's out of that recount zone when it comes to the vote with Loeffler, out of that 0.5% zone.
Come to no conclusions and have made no calls, but here is the situation in this race. Among our two close to call races, Warnock leads. You see the difference there. In the other race, the Ossoff-Perdue race, closer difference there, still too close to call. Those are the two races we're watching. And believe me, we are watching every incremental development. James Carville, our thanks, as always, for joining us. Great to hear your voice. Great to talk to you along the way. Another break for us. When we come back to Steve Kornacki. At the board we go, because the only thing we know about a night like this is every minute we're not looking at the board, there's little incremental numbers changes. There's one for you right now. We'll dive back in when we come right back.
Our special coverage of the Georgia Senate races tonight. We've got too close to call in both cases. In the Warnock race, the Raphael Warnock, Kelly Loeffler race, that race is being characterized by NBC News as Warnock being in the lead. But again, both are being described as too close to call. We've got 98% of the vote in. We are currently awaiting election night remarks from Raphael Warnock. Unexpectedly, Kelly Loeffler spoke a few minutes ago. We apologize for not bringing that to you live. We did not have advance notice that it was coming, and so therefore we didn't know that it had happened until it was already done. She made brief remarks in which she basically did not concede the race. Wouldn't necessarily expect her to. She's behind, though, by nearly 36,000 votes. She described herself as still having a path to victory. We'll see what Reverend Warnock says in his remarks, which are expected shortly. While we are awaiting those remarks, we're going to bring in back into the conversation, the chair of the Democratic Party in the great state of Georgia. She's also America's newest member of Congress, sworn in just 2 days ago for the seat in the U.S. House recently held by the late, great John Lewis. Congresswoman Nikema Williams, thank you so much for coming back with us tonight. I'm sure we are not keeping you up. I imagine you are bouncing off the walls.
I am still up, Rachel.
Congresswoman, actually, I have to interrupt you as soon as we started because Raphael Warnock has just begun his remarks. We're going to go to those live. We'll be right back with you on the other side.
Projects of Savannah, Georgia. Number 11 out of 12 children. A proud graduate of Morehouse College and the pastor of Ebenezer Baptist Church, the spiritual home of Martin Luther King Jr. and Congressman John Lewis.
Watching these remarks from Reverend Raphael Warnock, as you can see, it's frozen there. That's not on our end. That appears to be on the side of the feed. We're going to see if they get that reset on Reverend Warnock's side, on the side of his campaign, to see if we can get those remarks back up. Doesn't seem like we're going to. Okay, we still don't have it. We will go back to that if that restarts. While that is unfortunate, again, that feed appears to have frozen on the side of the Warnock campaign. We'll bring it to you if they get it restarted. This is how it goes. Apparently, it's just back.
hard work, and the people by our side, anything is possible. May my story be an inspiration to some young person who is trying to grasp and grab hold of the American dream. And so, Georgia, I am honored by the faith that you have shown in me. And I promise you this tonight. I am going to the Senate to work for all of Georgia. No matter who you cast your vote for in this election, in this moment in American history, Washington has a choice to make. In fact, all of us have a choice to make. Will we continue to divide, distract, and dishonor one another? Or will we love our neighbors as we love ourselves? Will we play political games while real people suffer? Or will we win righteous fights together, standing shoulder to shoulder, for the good of Georgia, for the good of our country? Will we seek to destroy one another as enemies, or heed the call towards the common good, building together what Dr. King called the beloved community? Here's what I know. I know that we can beat this pandemic with science and good old-fashioned common sense. I know we can rebuild a fairer economy by respecting the dignity of work and the workers who do it. An economy that honors those whom we now call essential workers by paying them an essential wage and providing for them essential benefits. And so to everyone out there struggling today, whether you voted for me or not, know this: I hear you, I see you, and every day I'm in the United States Senate, I will fight for you. I will fight for your family. To our supporters, our incredible campaign team, and to my family, thank you from the bottom of my heart. And to every Georgian who marched with us, organized with us, prayed for us, fought for us, believed in us, or shared their story and their pain with us, thank you for all of your love and support. In the words of Dr. King, who grew up just a few blocks from where I'm sitting right now, we are tied in a single garment of destiny. We are caught up in an inescapable network of mutuality. Whatever affects one directly affects all indirectly. I remember my dad in this moment. He used to wake me up every morning at dawn. It was morning, but it was still dark. It's dark right now, but morning comes. And Scripture tells us that weeping may endure for the night, but joy comes in the morning. Let us rise up, greet the morning, and meet the challenge.
Before we saw the audio glitch again, just as we saw the video glitch at the beginning of the Reverend Raphael Warnock speaking right now at a time that NBC News has not called this race. The NBC characterizes this race as too close to call, with Reverend Warnock in the lead. He leads right now, by our count, at 35,702 votes, 98% of the vote in Georgia. But you heard him say there plainly, I am going to the Senate. He said, I'm going to the Senate to work for all of Georgia. Now, his opponent, Kelly Loeffler, tonight also made brief remarks to her supporters in which she said that she still the victory and that a lot of votes remain to be counted. So she's not conceding defeat. He is essentially claiming victory. This race remains to be called by NBC News, but Reverend Warnock is clearly in the lead. Williams, Steve Kornacki has been burning up several phones, and we're going to be talking with him about the outstanding vote that remains to be coming in and why the numbers keep shifting a little bit. Right now, as I am checking, it looks like the Perdue lead over Jon Ossoff is down to 1,100 votes. The Warnock lead over Loeffler is up to almost 36,000 votes. More details, more numbers with Steve when we come back. Stay with us.
One but two barn burner Senate races. At stake, of course, is control of the U.S. Senate and nothing less. And we understand you don't want to hear from us. There's one guy you want to hear from, especially at this hour. He's at the big board. Steve Kornacki, what have you learned in the intervening minutes?
Well, it's gotten real close again, inside of 1,000 votes now in this David Perdue-Jon Ossoff race. Jon Ossoff trailing David Perdue by 919 votes statewide. Look at that spread right there, 50-50, a difference of 919 votes. That's come down. It's come down because we just got a batch of very, very small, in Fulton County here, where Atlanta and the suburbs are, a batch of a couple hundred votes that were cast today, Election Day, same-day votes. I think that's the last of the same-day vote in Fulton County. It was a couple hundred votes there, helped Ossoff in terms of the statewide number there. The other thing we got in, and I think this one is important to kind of understanding the moment we've reached here in terms of what's to come here. We said, if you were watching a few minutes ago, we said, look, there are sort of a scattering of counties around the state, some of them red counties, where what we're basically waiting on here are the mail votes. Mail votes from some relatively small counties here. The mail vote, we say, tends to be the most Democratic vote. And I say this because the other thing that just happened in the last few minutes to make that Ossoff-Perdue race tighter is we got the mail vote in Coffee County. So Coffee County is a small county. It's a heavily Republican county. David Perdue is going to get 69% of the vote out of this county. But the mail-in vote was just tabulated. That was the last outstanding piece of the vote here in Coffee County. Jon Ossoff won 54% of the mail-in vote in Coffee County. So we just got a batch of votes from a very, very heavily Republican county, and the Democrat gained because it was just mail votes. That was what was left to be counted there. And Raphael Warnock, by the way, in the other race, also got 54% of the mail-in vote in Coffee County. So this is the kind of thing we're saying. We're talking about where the outstanding vote is. There's a scattering of counties like Coffee County. They may look red on paper, they may be red overall, but we're down to having mail-in votes to count from these counties. And so even in a county like Coffee, where Republicans are getting upward of 70% of the vote, the mail-in portion, which is what's still to be released, that Democratic here. Democrats gain more votes than Republicans out of Coffee County. So
News now projects Raphael Warnock as the winner in the special Georgia Senate election tonight. Raphael Warnock, the projected winner, beating incumbent Senator Kelly Loeffler with a, at this point, 36,000 vote margin. The votes are still now up to 40,000. The votes are still being counted in Georgia. Raphael Warnock is building that lead. Let's go straight to Steve Kornacki at the big board with the latest numbers. Steve Kornacki, what do we have?
All right, Lauren, so what just happened that caused this race to be called for Raphael Warnock? And you can see the official call on our screen. We got another batch of votes from DeKalb County. We've been talking about DeKalb County. We didn't get all of the outstanding vote, but we got about 6,000 more votes. Remember, there were about 18,000 outstanding, so about a third of the remaining vote in DeKalb County. Overwhelmingly Democratic DeKalb County just came in. Warnock won 91% of the new vote that just came in. So extremely Democratic vote that just came in. What that does to Warnock's lead statewide is it pushes it over 40,000. It pushes it to a full point. Again, still more than 10,000 votes to come in DeKalb County. You can see the dramatic effect that these updates from DeKalb County are having. So Warnock still, there is vote to come from DeKalb County that will push that lead out further for him. There is still, as we said, 7,500 mail ballots to come from Fulton County. We expect that to also benefit Warnock, potentially votes in Chatham County, Savannah, the opportunity for him to build that lead north of 50,000 and putting it into a place, Lawrence, we were talking about about this a little earlier. The decision desk is looking for, does a candidate get to a place where there just is no realistic way that the opponent, the trailing candidate, can get back in it? And Warnock is putting this race in a position now where there's not a realistic path for Kelly Loeffler. And also he's clear critically, 50.5 to 49.5, a full point ahead. He seems clear right now of that 0.5% threshold that could trigger a runoff. If the margin between these two candidates was a half a point or less, that's recount territory. It's a full point, and again, growing. It's a full point and growing. That is why Raphael Warnock is now projected by NBC News to be the next United States Senator from Georgia. How about the other race? That same update from DeKalb County has changed the leaderboard in the other Senate race. Jon Ossoff has taken the lead over David Perdue because of that big batch of votes we just got out of DeKalb County. The lead for Jon Ossoff now statewide in Georgia sits at 3,560 votes. Again, it was the exact same story in the Ossoff-Perdue race. We got a third of the remaining vote, a third of the outstanding vote in heavily Democratic DeKalb County. 90%, more than 90% of the vote that just came in was for Ossoff. It vaulted him into a lead over David Perdue. We have been tracking this all night. Ossoff has been right on Perdue's heels for hours right now. We said we expected when he got that DeKalb vote, he was going to have a shot to take the lead. He has taken the lead. Now, this is where it's important. What I was just talking about with Warnock and the possibility for Warnock to really put that over 50,000 potentially, the possibility exists here for Ossoff now to expand on this lead because, again, what we just got, I'll call it up on the screen here, what we just got from DeKalb County was a chunk of the remaining vote in DeKalb County, but it was not all of the remaining vote. It was about a third of the remaining vote. So again, there is still, this is early vote, it looks like it's about 90% Democratic. There are still plenty of more votes to come from DeKalb County that Jon Ossoff, you expect to win overwhelmingly. He just gained, nearly about 4,500 votes. The margin just changed about 4,500 votes, nearly 5,000 votes. That could, with these further updates from DeKalb County, that he could climb up to 10,000. He could climb over 10,000, maybe significantly over 10,000 with what is still to come from DeKalb County. On top of that, again, 7,500 mail ballots to come from Fulton County. Not going to get them till tomorrow. Not going to have the numbers released till tomorrow afternoon, but 7,500 mail ballots. Vote by mail is heavily Democratic generally. Fulton is heavily Democratic. Again, you expect from that 7,500, Ossoff will continue to build the lead. So he could get that well north of 10,000 with what's left in DeKalb. He could add further to it with what we get out of Fulton County when they release those mail votes tomorrow. Also, Chatham County, where Savannah is, we think there are a couple thousand votes there as well. So again, the opportunity for Jon Ossoff, I think one number that might be interesting to keep in mind here, Lawrence, is, you mentioned this before, Joe Biden's winning margin in the state of Georgia over Donald Trump last November was a hair under 12,000 votes. And maybe use that as a bit of a marker here as you watch the remaining vote come in from DeKalb, from Fulton. Is Ossoff going to get above that Biden margin from last November? If so, how significantly is he going to move above that margin here? So again, opportunity here for Ossoff now to build some kind of a lead with the vote that's yet to come. And again, for Warnock, I pressed the wrong button there, but for Raphael Warnock, he's now trying to just run. I'm in Alabama. I don't know what the heck I'm doing here, Lawrence. For Raphael Warnock, he could just run away from Kelly Loeffler now. He's the winner. And just the question here is, how high is that margin going to get for Warnock?
Steve, thank you for that important update, the most important update of the night so far. And so there we have it. History made in Georgia tonight. NBC News is projecting that Raphael Warnock is the winner in the Senate election in Georgia, beating incumbent Senator Kelly Loeffler, now 40,000 votes ahead of Senator Loeffler. We are joined now by Jonathan Alter, David Jolly, Christina Greer to continue our conversation. And Christina Greer, this is history made in Georgia tonight.
It is. And, I'm cautiously optimistic. I like to celebrate when things are certified. But we do know that this country has a long history of excluding Black voters and also Black people from the political process. So when we think about Reverend Warnock, or soon to be Senator Reverend Dr.-elect Warnock, I'm not too sure of the order of things, following in a long tradition, but I hope it does set a tone and a pace for other Black candidates to be elected statewide. We've never been able to get a Black female governor elected in the history of the United States. Hopefully that'll change in 2022. We've only had 2 Black female senators ever elected. So I think a lot of people are inspired tonight, and not just Black Americans.
Jonathan Alter, Christina Greer, David Jolly, thank you for joining our discussion tonight. The news of this hour, the historic news of this hour, NBC News is projecting that Raphael Warnock has won his Senate election in Georgia tonight. We will continue our live coverage of the Georgia Senate elections all night. Steve Kornacki is not going anywhere. He has pledged not to leave the building until we have results. My colleague Ali Velshi will pick up our coverage after this break.
Good morning to you. I'm Ali Velshi at MSNBC headquarters in New York. It is 2 a.m. in Atlanta, and the Democrats are on the brink of retaking control of the United States Senate for the first time in 6 years, which could help President-elect Joe Biden as he seeks to enact his agenda. Moments ago, NBC News projected that the Reverend Raphael Warnock has won the seat that Republican Kelly Loeffler was appointed to just 1 year ago. Here's what Warnock had to say a short time ago about his victory.
May my story be an inspiration to some young person who is trying to grasp and grab hold of the American dream. And so, Georgia, I am honored by the faith that you have shown in me. And I promise you this tonight. I am going to the Senate to work for all of Georgia.
The race between Warnock and Loeffler has been decided. NBC News says the race between Democrat Jon Ossoff and Republican Senator David Perdue remains too close to call. Ossoff has taken a slight lead, and his campaign has issued a statement essentially declaring victory. Nearly all of the vote is now in, a far cry from November, where it took more than a week to count all of the votes. The Georgia Secretary of State's office says there have been no reports of major issues with voting. So I want to get started with a look at the very latest results from Georgia, and you all know what that means. I almost feel like not having to say it. Here we go. The one and only Steve Kornacki at the big board. Sir, take it away.
Well, Ali, we've been telling a story all night about, Warnock getting the lead. It feels, 3-4 hours ago, something like that, and then slowly building a lead. And we knew that what was going to happen sometime in these overnight hours was we were going to get a significant update from right here in DeKalb County, just outside. Actually, some of Atlanta is in DeKalb County, Atlanta, and just outside Atlanta. Overwhelmingly Democratic county. So they had, as of about 10 minutes ago, there were about 20,000 votes left to be counted in this county. We got about 6,000 of them in, and Warnock won 91% of them. Ossoff also won 91% of them. I mean, this is just an overwhelmingly Democratic county. And so that just pushed the Warnock lead up to a full point statewide, over 40,000 votes. It just reached the point where there's no conceivable way that Kelly Loeffler is going to catch Raphael Warnock. And also, Warnock is going to be clear, we can show you on the statewide result here, is going to be clear, it looks like, of that recall. But, I say recall, recount. If you're within half a point statewide, there could be a recount. It's now up to a full point. There are still votes left to be counted, reported out in DeKalb County, maybe coming overnight. Any votes that come out of DeKalb County still, and there are more than 10,000 of them, are only going to pad Warnock's lead over Loeffler. Also, in the other race you mentioned, it vaulted, that update from DeKalb County, it vaulted Jon Ossoff ahead of David Perdue. Now a 3,560 vote lead for Ossoff over Perdue. And this is where it gets critical. We know Warnock has won the first race. The only question there is the margin. What about this one? Where is this race going from here? Ossoff finally has the lead. Well, again, DeKalb County, probably about 12,000 votes left to come in DeKalb County. We're expecting them to be probably like we just saw, probably something like 90% Democratic. So it is a reasonable expectation that when all of the vote comes in from DeKalb County, again, it may be happening sometime in these overnight hours, that Ossoff margin from the vote just in DeKalb County can climb over 10,000 votes statewide, maybe over about 12,000 votes statewide. Where else are we still waiting on votes in Georgia? The other big source of it is right next door. There's DeKalb here and there's Fulton here. This is Atlanta area. This is the biggest county in the state. They have all of the votes that were cast in person on Election Day are counted. All of the early votes are counted. The only thing left in Fulton County are 7,500 mail ballots. And they are, we talked to election officials there in the last hour. They told us they are not going to be released. The numbers from those 7,500 mail ballots will not be released until likely tomorrow afternoon, right? I say tomorrow, I guess later today afternoon. So it is going to be a while till those votes get reported out. But we know what they are. They are mail ballots in an overwhelmingly Democratic county. You can certainly expect these are going to be a heavily Democratic group of votes. So between what is still to come in DeKalb County, about 12,000 votes there in DeKalb, overwhelmingly Democratic, 7,500 mail ballots in Fulton County, heavily Democratic, you can certainly see Jon Ossoff building the statewide lead that now sits at 35-60. You could certainly see him building that 15,000, maybe somewhere in that neighborhood. One other place where we think there might be some outstanding mail ballots is down by Savannah. You know, maybe again, Ossoff could add another 1,000 or so there. But that's, but the name of the game for Ossoff now is just to try to get that margin up as much as he can. Is he going to end up over Perdue? Is he going to end up less than half a point ahead? If he does indeed end up ahead, is it going to be less than half a point ahead? Keep that in mind, because anything inside of a half a point, you can have the recount. So that could happen. So we want to see, there's certainly momentum here for Ossoff to build on this. Does he build it enough to get out of that half a point zone? I think that's maybe some of the suspense right now. But you just look at what's left. You look at what we just saw happen in DeKalb. You can kind of forecast, Allie, where this is going in this race. You can see where Ossoff is going to build on this. The question is when. Are we going to get more DeKalb County votes overnight tonight? Is that not going to be till tomorrow? And again, we know that big batch of votes, 7,500 of them in Fulton. Yeah. We know that's not till tomorrow afternoon.
So let's talk about this a little Kornacki math. About 49,000 votes in total outstanding in Georgia. But let's just go to DeKalb County for a second. Your guess, roughly 12,000 votes remaining there. The split we've seen so far has been about 90% Democrat to about 10% Republican. So if it's 12,000 votes outstanding, we call that about 10,800 for Ossoff, about 1,200 for Perdue. You subtract one from the other, it gives Ossoff a net 9,600. He's got 3,500. So that puts him up about 1,300 in DeKalb County alone. But because this is so tight, and because there are 49,000 votes somewhere outstanding in Georgia, does that put us into the category at that point, once we get those final votes from DeKalb, to be able to make a call that Jon Ossoff has this race?
Yeah, I mean, again, I don't want to, I always caution, and people are probably sick of it, I don't want to speak for the decision desk, but I think, there is DeKalb. As I say, there's Fulton, there's Savannah, and I can remember there was, you think back to Pennsylvania. Remember Pennsylvania in November? It seemed the decision desk wanted to see Joe Biden not just get ahead of Trump in the statewide count in Pennsylvania. What triggered that call eventually was that Biden got half a point ahead of Trump. It was 0.5%. And then that was sort of the decision desk here and elsewhere, because all of the decision desks from different networks basically called the presidential race at the same point. That 0.5%, when Biden got ahead 0.5, and it was clear the only stuff to come was only going to add to that, that's when the trigger was pulled. So you've got right now statewide Ossoff just inching into the lead right now, 3,500. Again, if you extrapolate like you just did what's to come from DeKalb, okay, maybe he's sitting at about a 13,000 vote lead. It's still, in the grand scheme of things, relatively narrow. Remember, Biden's margin in the state was about 12,000. So Ossoff's margin would resemble Biden's margin. That would be in the recount zone potentially. So, yeah, I think you might be a little closer than we've seen in some of these other places.
So
but again, it's just you see where it's going.
Do you have everything you're pointing to where we're still looking for ballots seem to be places where the balloting is skewing toward Democrats? There were, I know at least an hour and a half ago, you were looking at some counties. They were not particularly large. Right. There's some counties in northern Georgia and others where we were still expecting votes that would skew Republican. Are we still looking for those?
Yeah, so what's left, basically, I'm giving you the biggest places that we're aware of that are left. DeKalb, Fulton, and Chatham County down by Savannah. Now, there may be a scattering of mail votes from, and we're trying to get an accounting of this, there may be a small scattering of mail votes from some of these, a lot of them are red counties, Republican counties. The mail vote, though, Republicans are doing really well with the same-day vote. The people that turned out and voted today, that's where the Republicans are running up big numbers. Even in these red counties, we're seeing, mail votes get reported out in some of these red counties where the Democrats are actually getting more votes in the mail vote. So you don't really see a huge source of Republican votes that's left here.
Postal.
Yes, the mail. Right. Yes, U.S. mail votes. So look, it's these three that we're talking about, plus 17,000 military votes. That's not something that's going to get done tonight. Plus a certain number of provisional ballots. And these are, it's going to take a few days before they go through to provisional ballots. How many of those are there? There were 10,000 in November. It'll be short of that, we think. Let's say maybe 8,000. That seems a reasonable guess. The provisional ballots, we saw them break 2-1 for the Democrats back in November. It's a pretty good rule of thumb for these things. So there's a group of about 8,000 provisional ballots we think will go overwhelmingly, heavily Democratic. There's these three counties where we think Democrats are positioned to do very well with what's left. And there are 17,000 military ballots. And Georgia does not release the results specifically of the military ballots. But again, I think, look, if you're putting the military ballots together with the provisional ballots, I think that's probably worst case for Democrats. There's a wash.
Right. Okay, Steve, we're going to stay close to you. What are you expecting? Do you know what we're getting in the next hour or two?
I'm glued to every report you've had on from Priscilla Thompson, because I know she's there in DeKalb County, and I'm as eager as anybody to hear what she's hearing, because look, we know we're not getting Fulton tonight. We know we're not getting anything else from Chatham County tonight because we know the officials there have gone home. So if we're getting anything more substantial tonight, it's going to be from DeKalb County. It's going to be that 12,000 or so votes outstanding there. Clearly, this is, an 85-90% Democratic vote that's left there. Are we getting another update? Are we going to get most all of it tonight, or is that going to be sometime tomorrow? That seems to be the overnight drama here, I would say.
We're going to be talking to Priscilla in just a couple of minutes, but she was reporting that there was a technical glitch with one of their memory cards, so that they are scanning 19,000 ballots manually. That process is ongoing. They hope to have them done tonight. Do you believe that group of votes you just got from DeKalb includes that, or is that separate?
Yeah, I believe what we just got was a portion of that 19. I think we got about a third of that 19,000. Right. So when I'm saying about 12,000 left, my understanding of it is that we got a chunk of it, but not about a third of it. Okay.
Wanted to note this: while we were listening to the president-elect earlier, NBC News called the second of the two Georgia Senate races, after hours and hours of being sure and counting and waiting, for Jon Ossoff. That means, take this to its logical extension, that while they were under security detail shelter in place, Mitch McConnell became, in effect, the minority leader designate. Chuck Schumer became, in effect, the majority leader designate, again, by our vote counting and reckoning from our decision desk. In the middle of this, a change in the political balance of power within that building.
Hey there, I'm Chris Hayes from MSNBC. Thanks for watching MSNBC on YouTube. If you want to keep up to date with the videos we're putting out, you can click subscribe just below me, or click over on this list to see lots of other great videos.